Hello, everybody, and welcome to today on February 4th, 2024. So glad to have you all hanging with us. I'm Jared. We also got Ryan over on the other side of the pond, and Dutta not on the other side of the pond, but definitely on the other side of the basin. So just as hard for me to get to as it would be to Ryan. Today we've got a pretty big deal in space to talk about. I'm actually really excited to talk about this because this is something I've been thinking about for quite some time, and we've never really talked about it on the show here in great detail. So I'm really excited to get into the nitty-gritty of this. And Ryan, let's go ahead and get started in talking about what is a very cool, if not a very big story
Yeah,
that's come out just recently.
that's very good, Jared. Very good. So, if you weren't already aware, we are of course talking about Starlab, which you may be shocked to find out being named Starlab. No, it's not built by SpaceX. It's actually being manufactured by a consortium, should we say, of multiple different companies from all over the world. The two I don't know if you'd say like the two first companies or the two primary companies that are involved with the Skylab project are Voyager Space and Airbus from each side of the Atlantic Ocean, respectively. Northrop Grumman as well is also involved in the Skylab project, and I think Nanoracks might also be involved in some sort of capacity. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on that. And also, the most important company involved is Hilton, the hotel company, which is actually quite interesting because them trying to get into a space market, it would be interesting to find out what happens with that. I mean, hotels in space,
They
who's
don't.
going to complain about that?
They don't currently have any competition.
Exactly.
That's true.
You're going
It's
to
very
wait
true.
until what's the other big group? IHG get involved as well. Anyways, big space stations. We've got a picture of it in the thumbnail. Starlab is it's hard to grasp the space of the scale of Starlab when it's a render of it in space, right? But the main module of this thing is 8 meters across. That's over double the diameter of the space station modules that we know and love on the ISS and on Tiangong and that Axiom are currently manufacturing to be docked to the ISS. So this is a scale that is just unheard of in modern day aerospace, and it's not going to be built in space. They are launching the whole thing at once. This space station is a single launch space station, and it is 8 meters across. And of course, the only vehicle in the future, in the near term future at least, which is going to be capable of doing that is Starship, which is why we are talking about it this week, because it was in the news that they have selected SpaceX's Starship to launch Skylab to low Earth orbit. So, yeah, the future is certainly big in terms of the rockets they're going to be launching on, the scale of the stations themselves, and especially considering this is a single launch. This is like a Kerbal Space Program challenge, right? Single launch space station, but they're doing it in real life, and they're doing it with a thing that's 8 meters across. I mean, the scales. This is just impossible today. Like if they wanted to launch that today, it would be impossible. This is only possible because of the future developments of vehicles that's coming. So I'm just excited about this.
It's kind of
Yeah,
funny. Looking at their website, they've got the volume, and they're dividing it up into floors. I guess is the only term I can think of, because the space is so big that you could actually get stuck in the middle.
Oh man, that's absolutely massive in what they're talking about. So, and what an interesting thing where it is a return to the monolithic space station, right? That design where you got one big chunk, and that is your space station.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, like instead of the modular thing like we've done with basically everything except Skylab. Um, hey, I guess we really are returning to Skylab after that, right? Like, holy moly, what was once old is new again.
Yeah.
So, um, so we'll have to, maybe we could get return to Skylab back on to talk about that that documentary with it. But with absolutely massive space stations becoming a thing, what exactly what exactly sets Starlab apart? Um, what are the really big differences from say the International Space Station? Because you've already got a platform there with the International Space Station. So what is that niche or that advantage that Starlab has compared to the International Space Station?
Skylab, well, first of all, the main point with the ISS is that it's getting old. It's over 20 years old at this point from the first module that was launched before I was born. So you know, its technology is no longer in its prime, shall we say? The ISS is definitely a lot more cluttered compared to the Tiangong space station, the other LEO station that we currently have. And because of this, NASA is turning, like they have with practically everything else, turning towards commercial company partnerships. So they have a set of contracts essentially with multiple different companies, which are similar to how they awarded a contract to SpaceX and Boeing to develop commercial crew vehicles, and how they awarded contracts to SpaceX, Sierra Space, Northrop Grumman to develop cargo commercial vehicles for space station resupplies. They are contracting space station companies to build space stations in LEO, which NASA can then buy. What would the word be? It wouldn't be like they can then buy time, buy space on that contract space on those space stations. So it would be kind of like NASA would have their experiments that they want to test in LEO, and they would ship it up to a commercial platform for them to do those experiments on, essentially. And the technology today is much further advanced than it was at the turn of the millennium. So it's much better to be developing new stations to try and upgrade the ISS, which is a massive modular thing, which would take quite a bit of time to upgrade, which then goes back to Starlab, which is one of those commercial destinations alongside, I think VAST may be involved in that, and Axiom are also involved with that. That is essentially why Starlab exists.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that with Starlab because you know, groups like Axiom are already sort of on the way, in NanoRacks and other groups like that. But also, you said NanoRacks is involved with Starlab.
I'm not
Or at
sure. I
least
think they could be, although I may be getting confused with Orbital Reef as well. But the nanoracks are definitely involved in space stations. I just can't remember if they're involved with Starlab specifically.
Yeah, so just in my looking it up very quickly here, just to be extra, you know, double checking with things here. We've got a project this was proposed by NanoRacks. It's majority shareholder Voyager Space and Lockheed Martin, and then Airbus coming in with that. Northrop is going to be providing um, essentially a system that will allow the Cygnus spacecraft to resupply the station. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing how far along this actually is. They've already passed their systems requirements review, which they conducted with NASA to make sure that everything is looking like it should at this point in the design work. And now they have a launch vehicle, it sounds like, with them choosing Starship to go for it.
The Starlab project, just to be clear, was initially proposed by three partners in 2021: NanoRacks, Voyager Space, and Lockheed Martin, responding to a commercial LEO destinations program from NASA.
Gotcha. So this is definitely a recent development, and yeah, overall a very interesting interesting potential future that we have with us here, because with the like we mentioned, the International Space Station being old, and NASA not exactly having a lot of money on hand with focusing on Artemis and things like that. The 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 International Space Station may go by the wayside a little bit in terms of their priorities. So, has NASA ever officially said anything about the International Space Station in terms of when they're planning, when retirement is going to be imminent for it, or is it sort of going to be like a mere situation where it was like, oh, well, I don't know, we'll try to,
They
you know,
they've been waffling for years. They've been adding extensions after extensions after extensions on the ISS hardware. Um, f- Frankly, there's a market for commercial companies to come in and take over the reins of being able to provide space on station in orbit for places for people to do low gravity research and things of that nature. Um, and again, like I mentioned in the last week's show, NASA's edict, NASA's job is to do the things that commercial can't, and figure out how to do it, and then pass the torch on to commercial partners to be able to carry on that research, carry on those studies, carry on that work. And it seems like this, what VAS is doing. You mentioned there was another one, the derivative of Bigelow. I forget, the blow up balloon space station. Um, when they get this going, there's going to be competition for it to keep costs low, but there's also going to be. It seems like there's going to be multiple options for uh, getting into and staying in orbit for research, for vacations, etc.
Gotcha. I was
Sierra
gonna say if
Sierra
you,
Space.
I was gonna say
Thank
if you
you,
want
Arabelle.
to, I do have a screenshot of or some renders of what the station is looking like for
Sure.
folks there, so you can see that is 8 meters in size. That is gigantic. With that there, we can also see if there's a robotic arm, and I'm assuming that robotic arm is it almost looks like the Bishop airlock that's on the International Space Station right now, right? Like, doesn't that look like it looks like a spitting image of it to me, at least,
Yeah.
with that right there. So, and we know
It,
how much of a major success that Bishop airlock has been on the space station. So that's really cool that this commercial venture is looking not just it's looking everywhere that it can with this. And I love the fact that they've also got the not the hatch, because we have a big debate about this on one episode of tomorrow. I guess the docking berth, the berthing port, whatever we called it, there, and that is like pure. That is pure commercial resupply services vehicle coming in that area. So maybe it's going to be, maybe there's going to be, just like how last week we talked about Cygnus being rocket agnostic, which basically means that you could put a Cygnus on top of anything and fly it, as long as it has the payload capability to get it to the space station. Um, I guess we're looking at Starlab, making sure it's going to be also sort of payload or vehicle agnostic, so that way anybody can get up there and be able to work with that. So yeah, that's awesome to have that in the works.
and I wonder too if you could just stack these modules next to each other.
Hmm. Yeah, well, with reading what the interior volume of these modules are supposed to be, which I'm going to now bring up a rendering of the interior of Starlab, or at least what we've been privy to see of the interior. of Starlab. These things look absolutely massive, like huge, humongous in many respects. Like, look at the size of this on the inside here. It really does. It says biology lab there, and it really does look like a very high end, fancy biology lab. Except, like things are much cleaner than it usually is in a laboratory. So, like, you can actually see the reflection off of the floor. Like, that's not a thing in most labs.
But how do you know it's the
With that
floor? We're
there.
in CRG, Jared. There is no up, there's no down.
It's a very good point. You can actually, let me rephrase that then, Ryan, with that excellent point that you just made there. You could see the reflection of a multitude of surfaces. So, which is typically not a thing that happens in a laboratory. Usually you see that, and we call that a slip hazard because it's so
I,
well cleaned.
I'm
So,
sorry. I need to push back on this a little bit. It seems that this photo or render is colorblind to the fact that there is no gravity. Why is there a table in the middle? And what are people supposed to attach themselves to so that they don't move?
hopes and dreams and a little bit of magic that will keep you right in the middle there. So, come on, Detta, it's 8 meters. There's so much room, so much space for activities. You should be able
Yeah, but
to do things that you want to
uh, okay.
do.
That's
So,
unless they've got artificial gravity or something trying to keep them. It's that weird. That doesn't fit space to me. That fits futuristic space when we've got artificial gravity.
gotcha. So, yeah, the that is a really big area. Kind of looking at that there. So now I'm thinking like, they were talking about people getting stuck in the middle, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was an experiment on Skylab, I think, that where they tried to get another astronaut stuck in the middle, and they were trying different like swimming motions and wiggles and whatever to try to change their orientation enough that they could actually reach the sides. Like if that were all just one volume, you really could get stuck in the middle. Somebody could play a prank on you and like put you in the middle, and then you're just gonna stay floating there. Okay, see ya. We're just gonna taunt you from out here.
Yeah, and I want to be honest here. That sounds absolutely terrifying to me, if you ask me,
Yeah,
about that.
can you imagine
So
doing everything you possibly can to get to the edge? It's like that dream where you're swimming in a pool and you never reach the edge.
yeah, and I mean, I just want to point out something, which is that it has happened on the International Space Station before, albeit that they have done it. There's a video of I can't remember who it is, but when the Kibo module was installed on the International Space Station, they had they were messing around in it, as they had, I don't know if it was free time or they had just opened the module and the astronauts will be astronauts. But but they had somebody get in the middle of the module and actually sort of wiggle around just to show. I'm gonna hunt that video down now because I want to show that it is possible. What do you know? I found it. That was a lot faster than I was expecting it to. Okay, so take a gander at. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna have everybody hanging out with our friends here right now. So we'll all right, and we'll slow that down a little bit too. Sorry, you're watching video production happening in real time. Live at 5, everybody. Live at 5. So let's see if this will even actually work. Sometimes, because this is different with it there. All right, here we are. So I slowed this down a little bit so that way we could really see them. But there they are hanging out in the Kibo module of the International Space Station. All right, now somebody has put someone there. You have done a bad job today. You will have to stay in the middle. So I don't, I don't know if I'd call that punishment or not. Look, he's just hanging out in the middle of the module there, and now we're kind of doing the I guess Tex Avery cartoon run in the air, and now we're swinging around. We're doing a little hula hoop there, and I think we're going to get a I'm a fish coming up. Oh, there we go. Now we're flapping like a bird. We're really putting in a massive effort with this here. So yeah, that's a real problem. So you got to think about these things when you're designing the interiors of your stations at this point, or your spacecraft if you've got a spacecraft big enough, like some of the proposed Mars vehicles that we've seen, like a Starship. I don't know if we're going to have a big room on a Starship somewhere. I don't know. Maybe we could have like some sort of like rec room where we can invent our own sports inside it. I would absolutely invent my own sports doing that. But you can also see that there is he is getting a little bit of motion, right? So there we go.
Yay!
Hey, he's got it there. Is that Garrett? Does that look like Garrett Reisman? I don't know. I can't tell. So
He's a little short to be a stormtrooper.
Yeah, this is very SpaceX Twitter stream, so I can't make out much. So yeah, so there you go. There's our view of that there for you. So yeah, so you can get stuck if your interior is big enough. Isn't that wild to think about?
Yeah.
I wish I could find some of the footage from Sky. I don't know if they ever did that on Skylab.
Yeah,
So,
they did. Yeah, they did. They did. It was actually part of research that they were doing to try to figure out how to be able to move around in a zero-G environment. Because they,
Gotcha.
Skylab had those weird boots that they wore that were supposed to like lock into the triangle plates. They had
Yes.
the triangle plates that were stayed off from the skin of the spacecraft, and they had
Yes.
special boots that had like cleats that you stick in and rotate, so that you could stand in place on anywhere that was on the floor. But they had enough of a volume in there that was big enough that you could actually get stuck in the middle. So they tried, replicating the anti-gravity cats, trying to like swing around and figure out how to right themselves in zero G.
Sorry, he's just made me think about that video of the cats in zero G and just how they're having so difficult of a time, because I should not be laughing at that as an animal lover. But oh my God, you just reminded me of that video with the cats, and I just cannot. Oh, I feel like I'm gonna have to find that now and do that with it. So, I'm actually finding quite a lot with Skylab here. So give me just a second so I can grab all of these. Just finding some absolutely fascinating stuff, and it's at not potato quality as well. So that's very helpful. So, but
Thanks to
obviously it's going
Dwight.
to take a few seconds here. Actually, it's not anything from Dwight, our friend who did a very awesome documentary called "Searching for." I think it's "Searching for Skylab," if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we plug him like a year and a half or 7 to 8 years after having been off of the show with that there. But obviously, the more room you have inside, the more stuff you can do, the more experiments you can perform. And that's kind of important, right? Because you want to maximize what you're actually doing when you're up there. That's sort of always been one of the, I guess, complaints that people have had when they do complain about the International Space Station, is that it's just not had enough, room, if you will, with that there were better ways in order to put that up there. And also that the modularity or the piecemeal delivery of the parts of the International Space Station were a hindrance in it there. And I mean, I'm not gonna argue with a group of folks who have figured out how to make a space station of that size work. It seems to be a bit of a challenge, if you ask me. But
Well,
at
I
the
mean,
same time,
it's an
go ahead,
evolution,
Dada.
right? So it's an evolution. So the
Yes.
you're talking about the first airplanes. The windows on the first airplanes were small.
Hmm.
Like the windows on the Concorde were the size of a cell phone.
Yeah. You pay all that money and I can't see a dang thing.
I mean, you're
So,
you're like you're like looking through a little porthole, like, but even the evolution of regular windows on planes, the windows now on planes are the size of a letter sheet of paper.
hmm,
Like, things
yeah.
progress, the materials get better. We understand how to do it better.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I love flying, even though I understand in intimate detail how an airplane works, but I still love flying. And one of the most like mind blowing things that ever happened was the first time I ever flew on a Dreamliner and sat right at that window and was like, it's a big window. So like it felt like it felt like a portal that I could, like a wrap around that I could stick my head in. Which I just want to say, as someone who is 6'3", or excuse me, 1.93 meters tall, um, getting any chance to look out a window of a plane and not having to like be nearly horizontal with my spine is a fantastic thing. So thank you, Boeing, for doing that on the Dreamliner. I want to just throw the chat room in here because I feel like we've been neglecting them a little bit today. Bennett, with your great names, Mr. All Electric Car Lunacy, saying Space Lab was the thing on the shuttle, right? Yes, it was. So Space Lab, I believe, is also large enough that, or at
wasn't
least
that
the
Space
interior
Hab?
space. Well, I think it was space. I think okay. I want to say space. No, I think it was Space Lab because the
Okay.
whole point was that they were. It was essentially a extra area to do science, in addition to the mid deck of the shuttle. If anybody's going to correct me, there goes there. I
Spacelab
know
was a
those
reusable
eyes.
laboratory developed by the European Space Agency and used on certain space flights flown by the Space Shuttle. Boom,
Yep.
mic drop.
I was going to say, I saw Donna's eyes just now, and I knew exactly that you were basically going, I need to make sure he's correct. I need to make sure he's correct. I need to make sure he's correct.
However, there is
Which
also
is good.
the Research Double module, which was a payload module built by Space Hab Incorporated, now
Yes.
Astrotech.
Yes, and I believe with Columbia, there was one on board um, with that. And along with the extended duration orbiter palette. And I think Endeavour had one in its either was one or a replica of one in its exhibit area. I can't remember if it was a real one or not with it, but yes, actually, I really like Therian's suggestion here, which is that if you're stuck in the middle, just call NASA to maneuver the spacecraft around you. So just ring them up and be like, I'm stuck in the middle, guys. Can we get a little thruster firing, like an orbital adjustment? And I'll just,
That reminds
over.
me of a video that Jasmine
To
McBurney
the
tweeted the other day. Hang on, let me see if I can find it now. It's a brilliant video. As we're talking about space stations.
who's
The
that
answer is
comes.
the answer is no. We don't want to change our orbit. We can't afford the extra fuel, and you can't reach the radio to call them anyway.
That's why you're wearing it. You wear your radio. Oh my gosh, what is with what?
I just woke up, Jared. Somebody pranked me, and I woke up in the middle of the space station.
I'm sorry. Oh, Ryan's got something here for us to look at. Oh yeah, I know what that is. That's orbital. What a orbital reboost
Yeah.
looks like. Thank you, EV Mux, with that there. It's GTH 042 says inhale, exhale races. Right, and then he start flying away there with that. So, all right, there goes the boost. I mean, I suppose that's one way to move down while being
Yeah, this is what
very,
happens when you get stuck. You just need to ask NASA to reboost the space station.
yeah. That's honestly, I love that, and I also love the shuttle versions of it where they are firing like the thrusters, and you just see everybody in the mid deck fly to one section of it. It's just like it's like a half a foot or like a third of a meter per second burn,
I
and
love this bit of the video
everybody
where
just goes
MLA
flying.
just comes around the corner. He's like, "What on earth are you kids up to?"
Shouldn't you guys be working? Like, I'm not. I'm here in a commercial capacity, and I'm working harder than you all. So, no, LA's. I'm sure LA's having a good time up there. They just had with Axiom 3. They just had to delay for a few days because of bad weather off of the Florida coast, right?
Yeah. So
Gotcha. So they're getting a
free
little
extra
bonus.
days on the space station. Win-win.
Oh, those are not free, let me tell you. But they are getting bonus time up there. So, no, that is not free time. I mean, that's not like in a baseball game when we're tied and we're going to go into the top of the 10th and you get to yell out free baseball. No, that is not how that works. There will be another bill. I don't know if the bill will be bigger, but that bill will certainly be bigger than expected. With that there, I was like, Bennett, you're just bringing the jokes today with the Apple Vision Snoopy NASA headset. So I guess that's what you could do. So yeah, really fun stuff with that there. Okay, so I did get the Skylab footage of them having a good time. Somebody said that they really love to see the gymnastics of the astronauts. Well, you are in luck. Here is some astronaut gymnastics, everybody, with them bouncing around the interior of Skylab here. Do we remember what the interior diameter of Skylab is? It's
33
basically
33 feet is the diameter of that section, the outside diameter of that section, I believe.
okay. So we're probably looking more at like 9 meters total here.
Yeah. So it's a very similar diameter in terms of what Starlab will be, which is why I specifically said not like the biggest space station of all time, the biggest space station in the modern day, because Skylab, quite big,
Yeah.
as you can see here. So it's
Yeah,
very similar in terms of diameter.
Yeah, and that is I just yeah. There you go. You get to become the greatest gymnast off the planet when you're in orbit. So how could you not want to do that?
He's
That
been
looks
flipping
great.
for 10 years.
Yeah, I hope you all are happy. This is a literal flipping study to try to figure out what happens to the human body after you flip for several decades at a time. So now, see that I'd be absolutely terrified of something like that because of the fact that, like, oh man, I really hope that I have some sort of motion sending me somewhere. I can then
I'd just
go
be
with
scared to
that.
bang my head.
And
Yeah,
there would be no way to stop yourself.
not
Yeah.
exactly sure which astronaut this is. Um, yeah, Bennett saying, funny what you can do with heavy lift vehicles in one shot. Yeah, you just stick it on top of a Saturn V and you can get it to orbit. So, and yes, Sakura, that Skylab was absolutely massive. And again, a monolithic space station. So, yeah. Arvale Alan Bean, and he had training as a diver, and that's what he used for this. So, very cool. GTH 042 saying that you could have a torture chamber with air jets keeping you in place. So perfect.
Spinning you in place, that would be torture.
Oh my gosh, I'd throw up pretty quickly. And then hoopball, or yeah, Saturn V negligible class. Hoopball says to use your methane thruster for that one. That's a I don't know what the specific impulse is on that thruster. But I do know for most people, that thruster is not very well set to go through your center of mass. So you will have to compensate.
Depends.
And
It
then
depends on what the propellant is.
yes, I was going to say that, and then I was also thinking that that the specific impulse is also dependent upon the nozzle and the efficiency you can get out of that as well. So, and that will certainly be dependent. That will wildly vary between person to person. I actually did the math once to try to figure out how many people it would take um, to use essentially a human methane thruster to get the space shuttle to orbit, and it was something like 11.5 billion people all at once, going for 2.5 minutes. Like, it just was not feasible in any sort of capacity. But I ended up finding out a large quantity of things that I honestly never really thought about slash never really wanted to know about. So but that's where we also discovered the fact that the thruster that humans would use to move around very offset from the center of gravity, so it's going to be really difficult to maneuver with it. And in addition to that, it's very low thrust. Ion thrusters put out more power than it, so yeah, it's going to be
All
really
right.
hard.
I'm getting corrections. Skylab was about 6 to 7 meters wide. Well,
Ah.
actually,
Uh-oh.
diameter was 21.67 feet, 6.61 meters. Height 36 feet, width 55.8, length 82.4, according to Wikipedia. Sorry, I just pulled numbers out of my ass. But didn't bother to look them up.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'll do, if you would like to, go to youtube.com/TMRO/join. You can become a member, join our members only show after this. And I figure, since I have discussed it here, I will go ahead and talk about my findings on the human methane thruster in the members only show. So incentive for those of you who apparently need it. If that's a form of incentive, I don't know. It sounds a bit not the best to me. What is? I think I have found. I think I have stumbled across a great highlight reel of Skylab antics here. So let me get this real quick. I really appreciate EVBucks making things super simple with itself here. So you can see everybody kind of bouncing around on the interior there. I can never tell who is who and what's going on. But now we're having a party with all of our friends. Look at how freaking big it is. It's huge. It's like it's a room. Gosh, I just forget. And then this is so. So Starlab compared to this is going to be the same or a little bit bigger in terms of diameter,
A little
not
bit
in
bigger
terms
on
of
the
height.
outside.
So not in terms of height, because you said they're going to go with levels with it. So look at that. You could literally
Yeah,
run up. I'm running around the walls tonight. Man,
that
that's,
saves weight on the exercise equipment, right?
yeah. I
You
was
don't
going
have
to
to use a
say,
treadmill.
that's like me if I have Adderall and an espresso at the same time. So, all right. Let's see. What do we got here? All right. Oh, we're going to get some. Oh, yeah. Sure you are. Oh, yeah. I'm sure that's tough. So, oh, you need a little extra help? Need a little extra help there? Is that Albine? I can't tell. I think that is definitely. I think with that mustache, that's definitely Owen over there on the right. So I think this is the Skylab 3 crew there. So very cool.
One of those would be Jerry Carr, right?
He'd be Skylab 4's commander. So
Gotcha.
so after this. Oh, one arm. Wow. Oh, look, he still can't do it one arm. So, Wow, no
I can
hands.
do push-ups with my toes.
Yeah, must be a lot of fun. It looks like they're having a lot of fun with that. There, it's honestly, zero G's got to be a really cool time.
Your tax
So
dollars at work, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, well, the tax dollars of my parents. I don't know. I think it was before my parents were even doing stuff that gave the government taxes. So Stephen Glasser bringing up a good point here. That was one of the main talking points that we had here, which is that uh, Starlab will be flying on Starship. They are not related to each other. Starlab separate from SpaceX's Starship. So Stephen's saying, don't see how Starship would launch an 8-meter payload and still maintain a header tank connection to the main tank if it stays in its current location. So is the Starship expended? How are we looking with this here? Or are we just so fresh with it that we don't actually know yet? That we're just basically like, hey guys, guess what? And and we're gonna find out with it a little bit later down. Our chat room's off the. I'm going to say this: our chat room is off the rails today. We're being mostly on the rails today. So chat room, it's all your fault. But yeah, what exactly are we looking at with Starship here?
Well, the Skylab module is 8 meters across, right? Starship is a 9-meter diameter vehicle, which means that if you put this thing dead center in the middle, you have 50 centimeters all the way around. And if the interior of Starship maintains how it is at the moment and how I remember it, I'm pretty sure that there is, a meter of leeway would be fine if you had to push it up against one side. I mean, center of gravity, that would be horrible. But even if you put it in the middle, 50 centimeters just seems, good enough for the header tank lines because they don't go straight down the middle. They follow the side of the vehicle. So, and the actual header tanks themselves don't take up that much of the nose. I feel like people have a somewhat kind of misunderstanding of the size of them. They're not huge tanks. They are quite, I mean, compared to a human, they're big. But compared to a Starship, they're not that big. They're just like, they're really snugly tucked up the front nose of a Starship. So I think with the payload kind of section, assuming it's fully empty and there's nothing else in there, I think Starlab would be able to fit in there quite comfortably. But Elon has said he wants to make Starship longer, so you never know. Like the rate of Starship can change, the rate of development can change with Starship so much between now and when Starlab actually launches. So it's not launching tomorrow on chip 25, right? It's going to be launching in the future with a much more refined Starship, potentially a longer Starship. But yeah, also we don't know what the final payload bay door design is going to be. Is it going to be a big chomper that opens up like this? Is it going to be like the shuttle which opens up like that? We don't know. That's a simple answer.
Wait. Ship 25 is launching tomorrow. Ryan said
No.
it.
Maybe this month,
Right.
not tomorrow.
Confirmed.
Ryan said it. It's not me.
Confirmed. Confirm he did. That's how it works. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. A world exclusive on tomorrow. Ship 25 is launching, even though it has that already. What?
Sax got a visual to help us out.
Yeah, and even it may have changed since this design as well, because it's looking kind of towards the future and things as well. So yeah, the interior design of Starship is definitely not finished in any way, shape, or form.
It's a rocket in progress.
Yeah, and even that diagram had like the old 2019 flap shapes on it. So even that has changed since then and now, and it's been 4 years. So 4 years in the Starship development timeline is like 100 years in normal aerospace times. So much changes in that time frame. So
And configuration doesn't stop changing just because it's built.
Yeah, you can.
Yes.
I imagine
not for SpaceX.
I imagine that
No.
Starship, they'll be building so many of them that the ability to have kind of any payload bay door size and shape that you need may just be like a configuration thing, because at the rate that SpaceX wants to be producing them, Starship, the cost of building a Starship will be reduced so much that it may just be, if you give us so many more million to launch, we'll make your payload bay door the shape and size that you desire, instead of launching on ship 316, which already has a shuttle payload bay type door thing.
Yeah, I would be very surprised at, Dutta, kind of piggybacking on what you said. I would be very surprised if a, uh, oh, Bennett, ouch, 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 ouch. All right,
Nicely done.
there's the one Boeing joke per show we're all allowed to make, mostly because it is one joke at this point. Um, to piggyback on your thing with SpaceX changing their variations, I would imagine that a Falcon 9 booster from nowadays is, even though it would be a Block 5 technically, just like we would have from, say, like 2019, I imagine that there are still probably some sizable differences between them, even though they may be 5 years apart and technically the same launch stage one. So, yeah, pretty cool with that. Wow. So, so people, hold on. There's something going on in our chat room where people are talking about using a super heavy booster to deploy this as like a single stage to orbit kind of deal. What's is that a thing?
I don't
I
think
don't
that
think
would be
so.
possible, just because of the
No.
fact that Super Heavy finishes its burn like 3 minutes into flight.
Yeah.
So, this isn't Vulcan, which can, nearly take it to orbit, or SLS, which can nearly take the second stage to orbit and nearly put itself in orbit. This is a very much second stage, does a lot of the work as well thing. So Elon's spoken in the past about the ship potentially being SSTO capable, but the whole combination super heavy is designed to get it going and then come back. It's not designed to go into orbit itself. It's very much not designed for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go, folks. That's the way it
Arabelle
is.
says, I believe the upper stage of Starship can single stage to orbit, but it would be expendable and have very little margin for payload, so no real reason to do so, except maybe bragging rights.
Okay, so don't. So you heard it here on tomorrow. Don't you dare. With that
I mean,
there.
it will be SSTO from Mars, from the Moon, from other bodies, but not from Earth.
Yeah, Hoopball has a really good point here as to maybe why folks like myself and Ryan would want it to happen, which is that it would be an Ares 1X flight profile. So.
No, it wouldn't, because Ares 1X didn't get to orbit.
Well, we could have a very, very parabolic flight, a long parabolic flight. Yeah. So, all right. So, very cool stuff. I know we're making Dada shake his head. That's how we know that we're doing good today. So, Dad's upset.
Not upset. I'm not upset. I'm disappointed.
Oh boy, we did have someone. I figure we've probably talked about Starlab all that we can today. Does anybody have anything that we have not covered with that yet?
No, not really. Just
Okay.
Big Space
Yeah.
Station.
I was gonna say, big space station going to be going on a big rocket for big things and big exciting with it going on here. GTH 042, you were asking a little earlier if there's been any Starliner news, which makes which lines up very well with our Boeing jokes that we were doing with that. And The last we saw, which was a update about, I want to say somewhere around last Monday, Starliner is still on track for its mid-April crewed test flight. So I believe that they have handled the the delightfully flammable P213 tape problem
Yeah.
with it. And also, they've reviewed the modifications they've had to make to the parachute system on that there. So yes, it does appear that they are steady as they go with that one there. So, and we'll have to see if it actually happens.
Yeah,
So.
I'm not gonna really, like, obviously I am going to encourage Starliner and encourage crews on Starliner because I want it to be successful, but I don't have a lot of hope in a certain launch date until it actually launches, just because it has pushed so many different times for so many different reasons. I'm like, I would not be surprised in the slight. I don't want this to happen, but I would not be surprised in the slightest if they found some other really small thing. It's like, oh, we've got to delay the launch again by 6 months because we've got to remove some certain type of paint because it's flammable and exposed to oxygen or something. I don't know. I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm kind of dreading that something else is going to happen again, just because things like that just keep happening.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, there was once a shuttle launch that was delayed for 3 months because they tanked, they found a leak, they detanked, and then they found a crack, and the crack turned out to be all of the stringers that supported the oxygen tank in the oxygen vessel in the external tank. So they had to go through an X-ray and replace a bunch of those, and it took 3 months. So even a known vehicle is
Yeah.
prone to delays in that respect. Space takes a long time.
yeah. You want to make sure you get it right, especially when you have people flying on it. That is 100. You are 100% locked in to make sure you get it right. There is, we're coming out of a not so great week at NASA historically. So, and it's one of those that is and for those of us even who do not work for NASA but work in industry, it is a week where we definitely do remember what happens when you don't. Yeah, we just try to do everything that we can, and safety is the priority. Obviously, we are you are on the ragged edge of technical ability. So we are, yeah, it is always on the limit, but still trying to maintain within the margin of what you have. So, and which launch
133.
was that? Huh?
133.
Why do you know so much about that launch, Dada?
Story for a member show.
Oh, okay. And just to show what happens, Therian, you just became a member. Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you.
So if you become a member like Therian just did, you get instantaneous access to the members only. Like you ain't gotta wait for us to send you a code or anything like that. You're in. That's the way it works. You're in. So very, very cool with that there. So Therian, thank you very much. I also saw there were some folks that were yeah, poor Dada. It's been a decade and you'll never be over it.
No.
There's there's New Glenn. So we had our chat room pining for New Glenn updates if there is any to be had. I'm not sure if there's any to be had recently. So yeah, I would kind of look towards you, Ryan, on that front.
Yeah.
I unfortunately cannot speak to that.
Ever since the what's it called? Boilerplate booster rolled past the VAB and down towards Blues Launch Complex at the Cape. There hasn't been any other movement that we've seen publicly. However, if you want to go and watch the latest Cape flyover from NSF, there is some hardware which looks very much like flight hardware hanging around Blue's facilities. So if that is something you want to take a peek at, then I'm going to keep subtly plugging the January Cape flyover at youtube.com/@NASA Spaceflight.
Excellent. All right. And I think before we wrap things up here, I do want to say that when we were discussing the Integrated Flight Test 3, way back after Integrated Flight Test 2, we decided that we were going to take predictions from ourselves, but I don't know if anybody knew this. As we were doing that, I was also watching the chat room, and I grabbed predictions that you were making, you members and watchers and citizens of tomorrow. So I would just like to say to Pampalak, you said January was your prediction, so you're wrong now at this point. So I'm very sorry, Pampalak, with that there. So far, that's the only one that we have. Bennett, we're coming up on you, though, because you said Super Bowl weekend, and that's going to be next weekend. So we're going to have to see what's going on with that there. Hank, Damien, myself, B-Veebs, Jack, and let's see, and you, Ryan, we're all in on this month. Although there are some folks that are very specific, like myself, I said late January to early February, so I've probably only got about one more week before I'm wrong. Ryan, you said mid to late February, so you've got at least another 25 days until you're wrong.
And we get an extra day in February this month as well, so
that's your 25 days. Congratulations.
There we go.
So same with you, B-Veebs. I like this. Ricky Nixon said it was going to happen on Valentine's Day. I like that. Tina Watkinson said February 18th. Aka said late January to early February. So Aka, I think you and I might be wrong together on that. And then Damien and Hank, you just said February as well. So we'll have to see how that goes. But that's right. We hold you accountable here at Tomorrow. If you're going to run your mouth in the comments section, I'm going to run my mouth back and be just as wrong with that there. So excellent. All right, everybody. So we want to thank you folks, of course, who helped make this show possible. That's right. Our Tomorrow members. It is literally as little as $1 a month. That's it. Like a quarter of a cup of coffee for a month's worth of access. How awesome is that? And then if you reach a certain level, like escape velocity, you actually get additional access. So obviously these folks, plus our system support members, are going to be able to get into our members only show after this. And immediately as well, if you sign up right now, you're getting in right now. Our escape velocity members, these folks right here, have access to our escape velocity channel on our Discord. Now our Discord is open. You can join it. You can check the link. Just barrel on in and say hello. But if you'd like to join our Escape Velocity channel, where you get to see us coordinating things, you get to see who's good to go for the weekend, you get to see dad jokes out the wazoo, and the horrible ideas that we decide are good to try and make happen. You see that happen there. And Bennett, of course, with the pay enough and we'll write your name on the table with a Sharpie. Possibly. I don't have a table around me at the moment to do that with, but we'll figure it out. So that about wraps us up here. This is a pretty fun one today, talking about space stations and the future of them and the commercial aspect of future space stations. So I'm planning to be here next week. How about y'all? Y'all want to be here next week? See what we talked about?
Yep.
I'll be here next week.
Okay. All right.
With a smile on.
Yes, Ryan, always.
Always cheery.
Yes, always. As Anyways, all right, that's it. We're wrapping up the show. Bye, everybody. And then members, we'll see you in just about 60 seconds. So bye, everyone.